Live from London, it's Plank of the Week with Mike Graham.
Good evening and welcome to Plank of the Week. You may have noticed I'm not Mike Graham, I'm Kevin O'Sullivan, and I'll be your host while Mike takes a well-earned holiday, it says here, in America. Now, we've got a great panel tonight for you. You know what we're playing for? We're playing for this, who is the biggest plank of the week? And our guests will have their selections. First up, it's my partner in crime on Crosstalk and at 9:30 every day. Crosstalk, it's Alex Phillips. She's just got back from the cider house, so, folks, anything could happen. The world's best bodyguard, it says here, Will Geddes. Journalist to the stars, Rebecca Twomey, and one of the rare politicians who can also claim to be a member of the human race. One of the good guys, Alex Salmond. Thank you for coming on, Alex. We are honoured. It says here. Now, Alex, you can kick off the proceedings. What is your first nomination?
Well, let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, everyone knew that men were better at sport than women. Then all of a sudden, feminists said, no, you can't say that. Everyone's equal. And now what you have is men in women's sport. And it turns out that story was a load of BS. And this actually has reached into the world of darts, where there's been huge outrage because there is a Dutch player, Noelin van Leuven, who has been in the PDC World Championship of Darts and has won the lot of it. And guess what? Noelin, there they are.
There's Noah.
Who has a strong wrist from various pursuits, I suppose, and quite a height on them, and clearly has proven that people who are born male probably have better vision, eyesight, awareness, reflexes, throwing ability, and she's mopped the floor with the rest of them.
Now, there's a new thing. People who are born male have better eyesight. I take your point.
Awareness.
Men should
like
not
perception.
participate in female sport, biological males, and that's what Noelin is. But do we really think that darts gives you a real advantage if you're a bloke?
Yeah. Actually, if you
look
at
really whack the darts in.
If you look at biological metrics, men have a bigger field of vision. That's because they have to come out of the cave, look for predators, and bash things over the head. They were the ones who had to.
Bigger field vision.
They do have a bigger field of vision. Yeah, they do.
How bigger?
And I don't know. Do you want to do a test? But no, in general, men were better at throwing, spears at things and killing them. That's how they were evolved. Women, less so. We were good at cooking the things. And this just shows up very clearly in darts. And, there's no sport, it seems, that is sacrosanct against the purge of women's own events, even darts.
And by the way, didn't some of Noelin's fellow players quit in protest? Yes. So these were biological women.
But and this is happening in all sports. And you would think darts, or what do you have to do? Hold a pint with one hand and use the wrist in the other. Who's going to be better qualified at doing that? I don't know. Probably men.
Is that part of the rules that the women have to hold a pint as well?
I think it sort of counterbalances the throw, maybe. I don't know.
We were doing a story only today, about an Australian football team, women's football team, taking part in quite an important tournament. And they stormed it. They went through every round, winning every game 10-0. One player scored 6 goals in one game. And guess what? 5 of their team were trans women. I mean, they just stormed it. The other women's team didn't stand a chance. Don't you think, Alex, this nonsense has got to stop? It's just not fair, is it?
Probably. But it might just, in darts, it's probably the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, probably. But I could never understood this, You would expect there are many sports, I don't know, wrestling, boxing, where you would think men would have a distinct advantage. But, I've never understood why men should be better than women at darts or snooker.
Yeah, that's my thought.
There's no great strength involved, but it is the case. Women are better at everything almost now, but certainly when it comes to snooker and darts, men still have the edge. And I don't understand any biological reason why that should be the case.
No, it exists. It does exist. And it is about things like peripheral vision. It is about things like reflex action. Computer games, I'm sure that men are better than women. Reverse parking, I think that, I'm a decent driver, but parallel parking,
reverse parking.
Well,
I'd love to know the statistics, actually, of women that have infiltrated conventional men's sports.
Like what?
Do we have?
Well, yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Do you know what I mean?
You never get it the other way around.
You never
Yeah.
hear about trans women and how they're triumphing in traditionally, shall we say, women's sports that we
Yeah.
associate with
Yeah.
women, shall we say, such
Yeah.
as gymnastics. But with this whole trans people, sports debate, why don't we just create gender-neutral darts? So then you can have men's darts, women's darts, and gender-neutral, and then we can test your theory whether men have better
I think a
peripheral
new
vision.
Olympic sport should be remembering a shopping list and getting all the products you need and getting out for less money. I think we would really win that one.
I don't know. I'd throw my hat into the ring on that one.
I'm going to
quite
use
good.
my superior periphery vision to shut down this debate and move on to another person with superior periphery vision, a
my
male,
God, now you set it up.
here, very much a bloke. Will Geddes, what is your
Man's
first
man.
nomination?
So my first nomination, Kev, is something about a particular subject that's very dear to my heart, the Eurovision Song Contest. Something that I religiously watch every year. And
Have you ever participated? Or is it
with
just
my dulcet tones,
I think you could
probably
win.
not. Sounds like I'm not going to say strangled cat because we both love cats,
We do love
but
cats.
certainly a rusty pram will. But the particular issue that falls into my category or my first nomination for Plank of the Week is a very trendy cinema called the Rio Cinema in Dalston, who decided to host, which I believe they host every year, the Eurovision Song Contest for an invited audience to come along, sit in the audience, join in, audience participation, blah blah blah, and it goes on
Night
quite.
from hell, in
Apparently, it
other
goes on. Yeah, well, it would be my
Well, it is in
night from hell, but apparently it goes on at lots of cinemas around the country.
it does. Yeah.
So, but what they chose to do, which is just grates and grinds my gears, was they put a message out on social media saying, we will not be hosting it this year if Israel are participating as contestants in the Eurovision Song Contest. So they decided to elevate it to a political level. And that's
What kind of
caused-
racist level, if you ask me?
well, yeah, anti-Semitic, that's for sure. And it's basically caused a massive hoo-ha where they've now embarrassingly retracted that statement. But I would hope that a lot of people would choose not to go and view that show if that is their choice at that particular venue.
Okay, Rebecca, you're in the wonderful world of showbiz. Is Israel in Europe?
Well, showbiz and geography are two different things.
Not, is it? No.
But I can confirm that. But the Eurovision Song Contest is just supposed to be a bit of fun. It's not my personal favourite thing, but we don't politicise the Grammys or the Brits, any other music event.
We will.
But what I find very bizarre about the story is that the Rio Cinema was actually set up by a Jewish lady. Do they
Oh,
take
is it?
offence? Yeah, do they
I
take
didn't even know
offence?
that.
Do they take offence by that? I don't know. But it's a cinema. Are they going to start banning films made by certain countries?
No
certain
Barbara
people?
Streisand movies.
It's just like where would this matters up, and what gives them the authority
Yeah, exactly.
to dip into this? It just seems absolutely bizarre.
Yeah, this is what really throws me. It's trying to. I think it's someone who's misguided, a little bit stupid, in thinking this will garnish a lot of attention,
Yeah.
so people will come to our rubbishy little cinema to watch this. But the dilemma or the irony of it is the fact that the Eurovision Song Contest, certainly from friends of mine in the gay community and the LGBTQ plus community, is it appeals to them. They love the Eurovision Song Contest. Yet the support of obviously anything that is juxtaposed to Israel obviously falls in the line of Hamas potentially in my book, who are very opposed to anybody in the LGBTQ community.
Exactly.
The Venn diagram within
the most
the Venn
ridiculous.
Have I taken that too far?
Not
No,
really. No,
not far enough,
the most
right?
ridiculous organisation in the world is Queers for Palestine, the LGBT people who support Hamas and Palestine, who should really go and spend some time in Palestine and see how they get on as gay people in that
I don't know
country.
whether it's true,
Not
Kev, but I heard a great story about a Texan billionaire who has a 747, and he offered free flights to anyone for Queer for Palestine to have seats, and he'd fly them over there.
Yeah, take them to the nearest car park in Gaza.
Can I just
where they'll
point
kick
out
them off the
that
top.
Scotland hasn't been allowed into the Eurovision Song Contest, and I don't think we've had an entertainer in it since Lulu, and that was a wee while ago. So I think it's an absolute outrage that these countries from out with Europe are allowed to participate, but Scotland and
I think
ancient
Australia's
European
even.
nations should be right in
Australia's
there.
involved.
Yeah, we've had
And I'll tell you
Australia.
something, we'd do a lot better
I think
as
it would.
Scotland than Britain have done in recent
Hang on,
years.
sorry. Better or what?
England.
England have done.
Yeah,
England have
Ireland
had-
always
had-
used to be good. Scotland were good at it.
Ireland won it so often, it was costing them too much to hold it.
right.
Be
And
careful what you wish for, Salmond.
they threw the game.
Yeah,
You know,
You're
they
right.
chose the worst possible performer because they couldn't win it again without bankrupting the country.
So what do they do? Westlife, I'm sure that lost it for them. On to you, Rebecca, with your first choice. It says here Iceland. Is that the country?
No more geography
I
for me
hate that
today.
place.
That's the quote
Always having
to
volcanoes.
reach. Israel
Get
in
on with it.
Europe, Iceland. No, the supermarket, Iceland. Now, they've decided to rebrand the hot cross bun into
Tick.
a tick bun. So they did a poll, apparently, some research with some of their consumers, and
There it is.
said a fifth of their customers were happy to have a tick.
A fifth.
A fifth.
A fifth.
A fifth.
Right.
What
Yes.
about the 4/5?
Well, I mean, you're testing me on maths and geography today. It's a bit too much.
Look, I'm no mathematician, but 4/5 is more than
It's never
a
this
fifth.
hard with Mike, is it?
No. And
4/5 is 4 times more than a fifth. So
Yes.
why are they going with the 1/5 when 4/5 presumably wanted the traditional cross?
well, I think the main problem here is that the woke kind of situation in this is that people wanted a more positive. I can't believe I'm saying this. A more
inclusive
positive,
bun.
inclusive bun. But people who are concerned about, whether it's a tick or a cross and how someone might feel about that, probably are gluten-free, lactose intolerant, probably are unlikely to shop at a supermarket such as Iceland. And also, what I find very interesting about this is that it's for Easter, which means it's a Christian celebration.
Yeah, exactly.
And a cross on a hot cross bun is
I'll tell you who
supposed to
have
be
some
about
thoughts
Jesus.
on this. Alex Phillips, what do you think about this?
Do you know what really
This
bothers me?
abrogation of
This
Christianity.
whole, no. When it comes to woke and inclusivity, what that means is if it's Christian, don't say it. Get rid of it. Erase it. Dismantle it. It's got to go. It's evil. It's never done anything for the world. All the things that have come out of Christianity are pure evil. We can't talk about Christianity. If it's any other religion, especially a certain religion, then shout it from the rooftops, celebrate it. That's not inclusivity. That is being prejudiced against Christianity, which is the state religion of this country. Whether you believe or not, it underpins our laws, it underpins our culture, it underpins our social values. It's given us a heck of a lot. It's enabled the West to be free, prosperous, progressive, have rights, have liberties. It's been a brilliant thing, whether you believe in God or not. It's actually done so much for the Western world. And what I hate about this inclusivity thing is it seems to think kicking Christianity is a good idea. Do you know what? Get rid of all of that, erase our culture, and what you're left with is a rubble of horror.
Thanks, Alex. Could you just run that past us again?
The only problem with that thesis is that the much intolerance is different branches of the same religion against each other. I mean, Christians have been kicking lumps out of each other, well, for the last 2,000 years. And they're not the only religion who kick lumps out of each other, but the greatest part of intolerance and sectarianism is actually within single religions.
Yeah, but don't you think this tick thing is a bit ridiculous?
I wouldn't know if it's a hot tick bun. Is it a hot tick bun?
Well, you can have it
A
hot
hot
or
tick.
cold,
If
but I
you
don't
say
know.
that
tick
the
bun.
heat might
Bun,
offend you, could be
people.
Well, I
misinterpreted.
think as long as it's still hot, I think this is the main thing.
I just hope that
Very, very cross.
I hope the Iceland customers vote with their feet and go elsewhere to buy their cross bun.
Vote with their skates.
Well, we're all very, very cross about that, obviously.
Very ticked off.
That's why I get the big bucks.
Ticked off.
Brilliant
Yeah,
work.
that's why I get the bigger bucks.
On to Mr. Salmond, and you've got the hate monster. Tell us why you
Well,
hate
this is
the
the
hate
winner.
monster.
I mean, it has to be the winner. The hate monster.
It's looking good, I'll tell
is
you
a
that.
wee thing that looks like an Easter egg. But when the hate monster detects hate, I mean, for example, if we had a wee hate monster looking like an Easter egg on that table, after a session of this, it would be huge, because this is about the hate crime bill in Scotland. And Police Scotland devised the hate monster. And then they have a video which, is like Watch with Mother. They're like
We're going to play that in a minute. But
they're talking to 2-year-olds, and they say, if you're bad or you hate, the hate monster will feed and grow and grow and grow. But if we're all nice to each other, Alec, the hate monster will shrink down to virtually nothing. Now, the hate monster, unfortunately, just made its debut last week, and now has been relegated online. Now, does that
So
Ring a
hate
bell
that.
with Phillips?
Is it for kids, Alex?
No,
No,
it's
no,
not.
no.
Uncanny though your impression of the hate monster was, we've got the real thing here. So take it away, Mr. Hate Monster.
He'll make you want to vent your anger, just 'cause folk look or act different for you. The hate monster wants you to feel like you need to show you're better than them. Then, before you know it, you've committed a hate crime.
Is that for adults?
No, but see, the key target for looking at hate crime is young men between the ages of around 14 to 20. Unfortunately, Police Scotland thought it was 14 months to 20 months and devised their Watch with Mother video accordingly. So I think it's all been a mistake. It was 14 years to 20 years are the key target audience, but Police Scotland interpreted that as months instead of years. As I say, they've relegated the hate monster, but the hate monster's off the shelves. There's somewhere in the dark recesses of Police Scotland's website now. But it does seem a shame in many ways. I mean, I just wonder, I'm dying for the FOI, the Freedom of Information request, which asks Police Scotland how much they pay.
I'd love to know how much they spend.
Yeah, very good.
To have the hate monster
Don't ask,
devised
that will
for
upset the
them.
hate monster. It reminds me of Ghostbusters 2 and the rivers of slime underneath New York City that explode when people get angry.
But it does fill you with confidence, doesn't it? They're clearly, this bill was enacted, and I often feel sorry for Hamza because he inherited just so much rubbish.
Bit of a shambles.
But this one is actually, he's kind of jointly and severally liable because he was Justice Minister when this bill was passed 2 years ago. Now it's going to be enacted on the 1st of April.
When else?
And what could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, good Lord. I mean, I think hate gets a bad press. I find it a very enjoyable emotion. I revolve around it most of my life.
I've lived by the mantra, wake up angry. It works for me.
I mean, we've only got 30 seconds left, but I think criminalising hate was a really bad move. It's just an emotion. I mean, what do you think?
Well, the trouble is this. Look, I mean, if you had a sensible justice system, say we're going to look at things proportionately and we want everybody to be nice with each other, then fair enough. The trouble is there's nothing in the last few years which would convince you that we have a sensible or rational justice system.
Absolutely. Anyway, we hate hate crimes and we hate the hate monster. I think we all agree on that. Time for a break. We'll be back in just a minute with more of Plank of the Week. Welcome back to Plank of the Week with me, Kevin O'Sullivan, not Mike Graham. This is the good bit of the show because I have to decide at the end who wins this Plank of the Week. And of course, it will be one of mine. So thank you all for your contributions. Here's the winner. It is John Craven, formerly of Newsround, now of Country File. BBC presenter, of course, veteran BBC presenter, should know better. He's 83 years old. Suddenly announced after years of hosting and reporting for that excellent programme, Country File. The reason people tune into that, I've never been able to understand, but it's a very popular programme. Anyway, he suddenly claimed that the British countryside is racist. He said there is a disturbing amount of evidence to suggest that people of colour do not feel welcome in the countryside and everywhere is racism. My problem with this is A, I don't believe it. B, if you go to somewhere like the West Country, Cornwall, so we say the extremities of the country, you do tend to see far fewer people of colour, but that's just a sort of numerical fact. They tend to congregate in the cities. Now, I go to the countryside a bit, not as much as Alex, but I do go a bit. My brother lives in Devon. I don't see any racism. And I just think this is the view from the BBC, who just seem to think everyone except them is racist. And if you're not metropolitan and you have the temerity to live in the countryside, then you've got backward attitudes and you're obviously racist. Frankly, Alex, I think John Craven, who I've always admired, I remember him from Newsround days, should know better.
Well, do you know what? So first of all, it's important to point out...
By the way, Alex should be really surprised to know is from the countryside.
I love a bit of countryside, me. But no, what I'd say, first of all, this is a report that was supposed to be finding the connections between climate change and racism. I mean, first of all, you can throw that report in the bin with the hate monster, because that's just nonsense, isn't it? Oh, well, you know, the Earth's atmosphere is corroding because we're all nasty people who don't like one another. Get rid of that. Bunk 'em. They spent 2 years looking for this stuff, so they're going to find something, aren't they? And it's all like made up. But what I think is mad about this is I think it's racist in itself, because it's kind of saying, like, why aren't black people or Indian people or Pakistani people or Mexican people, I don't know, non-whites, out for hikes? It's basically saying, why don't you go and use the countryside? To me, it's kind of like suggesting, it's typecasting people to say that you're not going out on hikes, you're not in the forest, you're not having, you know, scrumpy cider down the local Rose and Crown. What is wrong with you? I mean, that is just ridiculous. The countryside is an absence of humanity. It's birds, it's trees, it's nature. Anyone can access it.
I know the connection between the countryside and climate change. It's farting cattle.
There you go, yeah.
It's well known that they're putting huge amounts of greenhouse gases from every field where they are up into the atmosphere. That's the connection. You don't need a special investigation.
Racist.
No, it's farting cattle. I know it is. And also, I mean, what the BBC doing in Devon, that must be the only programme the BBC actually puts out from the southwest of England. It's his countries.
Exactly. A rare kind of foray
That's
out
racist
of
against
North
the southwest.
London.
I don't understand. I mean, Kev, I just don't understand what is the connection to the racism. And the one thing that just constantly ticks me off, and I get ticked off a lot, you can tell.
Hot ticked.
It's always a negative message. There's no positive message. So if I just don't get it. And John Craven, that's my childhood ruined, Kev.
Well, it is a bit. I'm disappointed in John, because he always seemed like a good guy. But, well, I'm sure he is a good guy, but he's made a mistake here. Just to throw this out to you, as I was listening to someone the other day who made a very good point. We are obsessed with ourselves being racist, or BBC especially. Oh, we're all racist with racism. Someone said, well, you know, yeah, of course, racism will always exist, and racism does still exist in our society. But for Christ's sake, we were a lot worse, shall we say, in the 1960s. Do you remember Till Death Us Do Part, all those sick
Garnett.
Love Thy Neighbour? We were blatantly racist in the 60s and probably 70s as well. We are far less racist today.
I've heard that people in Cornwall don't like the English. Does that count?
That's true, isn't it? That's true. They want independence, don't they? They call the English emmets, don't they? Ants.
I don't think people in Cornwall like people.
That is borderline.
They do like their brothers and sisters.
Apologies to our viewers in Cornwall there. We love you, and we wish you all the best for your independence. Good luck with that. So shall we move on? Alex, it is your go.
I know.
And I have written down here, Judge O'Hanlon.
Yeah, you know how much this is upsetting me. So this is the
By the way,
story
everyone,
of a
if you've got anything to do,
man.
this will take 20 minutes.
Let's just, have a listen, because this is, you're racist if you don't listen to this.
All right, come on.
This is a story of a poor man who tried to find a better life. He came from Afghanistan. In his effort to find a better life, he got his bits out and flashed them around people. He threw some chemicals on people's faces. He said he, needed to be here when he didn't. And he was told, you've got to go home. He said, I'm not going home. And he's told again, you've got to go home. He said, I'm not going home. And then he said, I'm a Christian now. If I go home, I'm going to be killed. And a judge said, oh, poor man. There he is. He has to be escorted to church by the vicar who believes in him because he's a threat to women. The Home Office said, well, he could only name one disciple, probably not a real Christian. And this judge went, he must stay. And then what did he do? Threw a load of chemicals on a woman, lost her eyes, maimed the children, members of the public, and then threw himself into a river, dug out of the river, buried as a Muslim. Case closed, Judge
We allowed
O'Hanlon.
a convicted sex offender.
Plank of the century for that decision.
This guy was allowed to stay after committing a sex offence. It was sexual assault. He flashed someone, then he fully sexually assaulted a woman. After that, that was during the process of his asylum application. After that, the clergyman, the Baptist minister who was sponsoring him, said, well, he's still converting to Christianity, but we better make sure he's escorted by two men every time he goes to church to keep the women safe. This process, it went to the judge, and the judge said he can stay. I mean, that's just dysfunctional, isn't it?
That's beyond
Well,
plank.
I think the Baptist minister should be absolved, if that's the right word, because and that is the essence of being a minister, is to believe there's no such thing as a lost soul.
As a sex
Right.
offender.
But or a sex offender for that matter. But the judge, I think, has got. Is that Judge O'Malley? Am I right?
Judge O'Hanlon.
Judge O'Hanlon.
Hanlon, I beg your
Yeah,
pardon.
yeah,
I
yeah.
beg your pardon for. Well, I apologise to the O'Malleys. Yeah, the judge seems to have some questions to answer, but
Yeah.
I think we should allow the minister to see the good in everyone.
I
disagree.
disagree.
I'm with you.
I
The
disagree.
church isn't the border force. It's that
Here she
blimmin'
goes.
judge.
No,
It's that blimmin' judge.
I think the church has culpability.
His name
I've
is
mentioned
Roy
this
Mullins.
before.
The Baptist minister involved, his name is Roy Mullins,
Yeah.
who organised it, who continued to say this guy is a great guy, he's converting to Christianity. He continued to sponsor him, but said, we better take the precaution of always having 2 male escorts with him when he goes to church
Yeah,
in case
ridiculous.
he assaults any of the female congregation members. This clergyman does have questions to answer as well.
I totally agree. And a very, very good friend of mine is actually a reverend. And I discussed this whole case with him and said, would you be in this position where you'd sign him off to the Home Office and say, yes, he has officially converted? And he said, no way. We would have the controls in place to obviously ensure that that people aren't simply trying to use this as a simple excuse to evade deportation.
This is the thing. The Home Office put on the form, not a real Christian, can't name any disciples. And then it was this judge, the idiot judge. The buck stops with the judge. The
Yeah.
judge listens to the minister. The judge looks at the Home Office advice. The judge knows this guy has committed sexual offences. It stops with the judge to judge. The clue is in the title.
By the way,
And judge went, stay.
Yeah, but he
That was what
also,
happened.
Alex, he said he's been very dishonest throughout this process, but he can stay. It was a really egregious example of a dysfunctional system. And the worst thing about this is, had our asylum process worked properly with this guy, there wouldn't be a woman over in South London now fighting to retain her sight after he chucked
Disgusting.
alkaline all over her face and her kids. So that is something to bear
Beyond plank.
in mind. A good one there, Alex. Let's move back to Will. And I've got written down here, China. Is that the kind of material you use for plates? Or
We're not going to talk about my crockery.
Yeah, okay.
This is really in the wake of Oliver Dowden's comments, or statement, I should say, in the House of Parliament, in the Commons this week about the Chinese cyber attacks on the UK electoral system in terms of gathering information about what was going on, and that this was a particular sort of incident or cyber attack that took place in 2021, if I'm not mistaken, 21-22. Now, I listened very, very avidly to Dowden's comments, and it was completely pointless as far as I could tell. I've worked in that space. I know a lot of people who work in that space. I know people who work within the government agencies in that space in terms of repelling and preventing, obviously, the cyber attacks on this country. China is not alone. You know, Russia is doing its bit, Iran is doing its bit, Syria is doing its bit. There are various different cyber armies, cyber teams, through either directly as state actors or by proxies, which are separate little entities which are doing it on their behalf. We are under a constant barrage of attacks. I mean, last year there was over 8.5 billion cyber attacks across the world. Really? And so to focus down on China, focus on the potential sort of infiltration of MPs and their lives, to be honest, the whole thing I found was pointless, and I thought for the general public there was no takeover.
Before you come in now, Alex, let's remind ourselves. By the way, oratory, it's always helped if you have a powerful, booming voice. So here's the Deputy Prime Minister, Oliver Dowden, not employing his powerful and feeble voice in Parliament. Take it away, Oliver.
I can confirm today that Chinese state-affiliated actors were responsible for 2 malicious cyber campaigns targeting both our democratic institutions and parliamentarians. First, the compromise of the United Kingdom Electoral Commission between 2021 and 2022, which was announced last summer. And second, attempted reconnaissance activity against UK parliamentary accounts in a separate campaign in 2021.
Oh, he's finished. Oh, good.
Kev, can I just jump in? And the result of this fantastic speech that he gave was that one singular company has been sanctioned and 2 individuals.
2 people.
And that's it.
They can't get on.
Bravo!
This is total, complete rubbish. Not just the minister, but who obviously was talking complete rubbish. But the free MPs,
without saying.
but it's obligatory. I mean, the free MPs, there was Ian Duncan Smith, who used to be Tory leader some time ago. There was a guy called Stuart MacDonald, who was an SNP MP, he was a rep at Butlins before he became a member of Parliament. And there was some other guy who used to be a minister, I can't even remember who he is. And there the three of them were moaning. I mean, who on earth would want to know and understand, given the quality of their speeches, anything that these three people had in their computers? And secondly, the Electoral Commission. What data does the Electoral Commission hold? It holds the name and addresses of millions of people across the country. Data which you can go down to your local library and get, or stand for election and get.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, the Electoral Commission has been secretly collecting...
No, but this is what they were after, right? The reason they did this mass attack on Elcom was because what they were looking for were the invisible voters, i.e. people who work in the intelligence sector. They were looking for the names and addresses of spies, their phone numbers and contact details.
Invisible voters
that was what they wanted.
I'm afraid you're into one of my specialist subjects. Invisible voters are not spies. Invisible voters are anybody who opts not to be on the main register. And there are millions of people.
That's interesting.
You could do it. In fact, you probably should do it,
Yeah,
given the likelihood of hate mail being addressed to you. This is absolute, utter bunkum. And incidentally, if it wasn't bunkum, then even that idiot Dowden would have had something more to say than we're going to sanction.
Someone not very far from where you're sitting could be an invisible voter.
Rebecca,
because you could go to, I mean, as Alex said, sorry, Rebecca, you could go to 192.com. Go onto that website. You can get all the electoral details of everybody who's
even
registered.
Yours, Alec. Even
very
yours.
easy,
But
simple.
isn't it slightly a more serious issue that we should be addressing? The amount of data we give away willingly.
Oh, yeah.
Temu, that's from China. We're like, great, all this cheap stuff. It's marketed everywhere else. And we all willingly, like to do with Uber, we just give it all up front with social media. Why isn't that a conversation? Why aren't we responsible for our own data?
Well, exactly. And this is what irritated me about Dowden's speech, was the fact that it was all about me, us, here. Not about general public, not about us as a nation, not about what can you guys do to contribute. So in the same way as in counter-terrorism...
I want him as the security minister.
In counter-terrorism, the intelligence agencies rely on members of the general public feeding intel in for them to then follow those sources. Yeah. So, the whole process was just a complete waste of air.
But here's the conundrum with China. It's as simple as this, isn't it? Yeah, we like to talk tough. Rishi absurdly this week saying, I'm completely satisfied that we're being totally robust with China. Oh, yeah, right. But we need China. I mean, China supplies us with a lot of stuff, not least of which is the material for our windmills, our green windmills and our
the vast majority of your components in the house.
We need China, and therefore we have to walk a tightrope with them. And frankly,
especially with David Cameron.
Cameron and China.
Whose ambassador once asked me to get him into the leadership compound so as he could tell the Prime Minister he'd been allowed back in.
Yeah.
Is that Lord Cameron of Xi Ping Norton?
Yeah. Don't get Alex side on Cameron. But Cameron's relationship with China is questionable, to say the least. But that's it for now. We're going to take a break. We'll be back with Plank of the Week in a little while.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome back to Plank of the Week with me, Kevin O'Sullivan, not Mike Graham. He's over in the States drinking with his family. I hope he has a very, very good time. I'm not at all jealous. This is the final part of the show, so let's kick off with Rebecca Twomey's next nomination. It is that man. You have to be very, very careful how you pronounce this.
I've just been warned.
It's Jeremy Hunt.
So this individual has decided to say that 100,000 year salary is not that much to live off, even though the average is just under 35,000 a year across the country. And he believes that when you have a mortgage to pay, it's not actually all that much. And it was in relation to one of his constituents, a female who was had a six-figure salary and was saying that basically that's not enough to live off, and she, should be eligible for child support. She's actually in Godalming in Surrey. And there was obviously a big outcry about this. And Jeremy Hunt defended himself, saying, it's not actually that much because the average house price here is £670,000. What I find very interesting is, why is it when it's a particular demographic, the world's against them. So when you get a middle class women in Surrey, well, you know, it's just hard because property's so expensive here. You know, she hasn't managed her money. Whereas if it's a different demographic and they have several children, maybe they're, you know, can't afford, you know, a weekly food shop. It's why did you have so many children? It's your fault. It's not society's fault. It's only the individual's fault. But when it's a particular class of person, it feels like it's the house price that's the problem.
What we're talking about here is potentially, I mean, Jeremy Hunt's a very wealthy man, multi-millionaire, successful in business before going into politics. So they do, Rishi Sunak, tend to get rather out of touch with the financial realities for most of us. It's pretty easy, Rish, when you're a billionaire, isn't it? But let's remind ourselves of Mr. Jeremy Hunt on Sky News.
Do you regret tweeting that? It doesn't sound right, does it, to say £100,000 is not a huge salary?
Well, I was talking to a constituent who was pointing out to me that, you know, what sounds like a large salary, when you have house prices averaging around £670,000 in my area, if you've got a mortgage and you've got childcare costs, it doesn't go as far as you might think. And she's right. It doesn't go as far as you might think.
When he said his area, was he talking about his street or his whole constituency?
I mean, you wouldn't get a house there for less than about 10 million quid.
I've got a really good answer for him. The reason it doesn't go as far as you think is because you take most of it away in tax.
Yes!
You're the one. Your government haven't built enough houses. You've overtaxed everybody. You've cut off the thresholds for things like childcare. So actually, in many respects, the man is right, but it's also his fault. That's the point.
Never mind the taxes. It's the interest rate. That's what's killed everybody. That's why everybody needs £100,000 in his constituency to be on the breadline. It's because of interest rates. I mean, if you've got a £675,000 average price of house and you've got a mortgage of 70% of that or something, then you'll need £100,000 just to finance the mortgage.
The truth is, politically, it's a bit of a dumb thing to say, but in reality, if say you're a single mum or something with a couple of kids and you're living in central London or somewhere in London and you've got £100,000 a year, it really would be quite difficult to get by, which is an indictment of where we're at economically in this country. I think Jeremy Hunt, he should do us all a favour. I've mispronounced his name in that way twice on air. I think he should just change his name by default to that word.
Just make
do us all a favour, so we're no longer wrong. Don't you think?
And it could be called Kevin Hunt.
Yes. There's a
spoonerism on that one.
There's a lot of Hunts on talkTV.
My brain can't cope with that.
That's a good one, though, Rebecca. Very, very good. And it's back to you now, Alex. And Mr. Starmer. Sir
Starmer.
So Keir Starmer is one of those people, you know, when
I think we've now reached a time where Labour leaders of the opposition should be knights of the realm.
Yes.
I think it's been so unfair they've been outgunned by so many Tory knights over the years, knights of the shires. But now that Labour has their very own knight in charge, I think things are so much better. Except, of course, that he keeps quoting Conservative politicians. So just before Christmas, you might remember he decided after some period of time that Margaret Thatcher was a very formidable woman, and this caused an uproar in the Daily Telegraph or somewhere. And now today, he has decided, or yesterday it was, he's decided that Boris Johnson was actually right about levelling up. He just didn't do it very well. Now, you know, Boris Johnson didn't do a lot of things very well, but what Keir Starmer's actually doing...
Good parties.
Well, yes, good parties, even for commoners, not just for knights. But what he's trying to do, of course, is to say things which might be a bit controversial, that the press will get lines saying, oh my goodness, Sir Keir Starmer has quoted a Tory Prime Minister. When to try and disguise the fact there is no content. There's no policy content. So what you do is you fling a tidbit to the press to say something semi-controversial, and this is just pathetic. So Keir Starmer, who is heavy odds on to win the election, could really just spend the next few months. All he has to do is stand upright to win the election. But if you just think about some content of policy, so if he does become the first Labour knight to become Prime Minister, then he'll actually do things a wee bit differently, and certainly not just following the footsteps of his Tory predecessors.
Yeah, the emptiness of their policies, what we presume will become their manifesto, is like breathtaking. It's the same as the migrant crisis. How are you going to solve the migrant crisis, Keir? Well, we're going to try a lot harder than the Tories. What are you going to do about levelling up? And by the way, why are you nicking that policy? We're going to do it better than the Tories. I mean, that's not good enough.
No.
And by the way, you're a politician, Alex. I just think levelling up is a ridiculous cul-de-sac to go down because it will always get you into trouble. The Tories of Northern Powerhouse, then levelling up, and people in Middlesbrough go, ain't working. How are you going to level up someone living in Sunderland, someone living in Knightsbridge? It's a stupid policy because you'll always end up looking bad because you're never going to achieve your aim.
And it was also one that the Tories only discovered after Brexit because of the impact of the European issue. They actually won a few working class constituencies in the north of England. And all of a sudden they said levelling up seems a very good idea. Nothing to do with the fact that they just won a few constituencies which needed levelled up.
Yeah, it did.
Maybe I'm thick. I don't actually understand what
I
levelling up
there's
actually
no maybe
means.
about it.
Well, but I'm thick. Yeah.
You don't need to understand anything.
Thanks,
He
Kev.
doesn't need to say anything. Don't worry. He's got glasses now. That's the important thing. Keir Starmer's now got glasses.
Well, that's good. What were you going to say,
it.
Will? Sorry.
I have no idea.
You can't remember, so you are thick.
No. It was this whole thing about actually what levelling up meant. And to me, it just sounds like one of the fun episodes in the thick of it is that they've taken to some sort of balmy minister to say, oh, we're gonna give you levelling up this week. You've got to push that. Yeah. And they're like, I've no idea what it actually means.
Well, during the Tory leadership, of course, Rishi Sunak was caught at some sort of garden party fundraiser.
I remember
Where
I remember this.
One of his constituents,
Yeah.
no doubt in the average house prices of several million, came up and said they were a bit concerned about this levelling up business. So, and he more or less said, oh, don't worry about that. That's just a pretendy policy.
That's just for the punters. Don't worry about that. Absolute nonsense. We're never going to do that. But Keir Starmer, of course, I don't know if any of you saw him on Harry Cole's new show on the Sun TV channel and on talkTV. It's called Never Mind the Ballots. So Keir Starmer was the big banner first guest last week, and Harry asked him that age-old question: "Are you taking any drugs?"
Oh, I saw that. That was brilliant.
He said. No, well, I don't want to go there. He said, well, did you take any drugs when you were at university? I had a good time when I was a student. So he said, well, what do you mean by that? I had a good time when I was a student. Exactly what he repeated. I had a good time when I was a student. So Harry starts going, what, cocaine, heroin?
I was once asked, have I got news for you? So I said, I didn't exhale.
Yeah. More after the break. This is Plank of the Week. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan, and we've got a brilliant final part for you. Welcome back to Plank of the Week with me, Kevin O'Sullivan. Mike Graham's not here. I keep saying that. You'll get used to it in the end. Now, let's kick off this final segment with my final nomination, and it is that old favourite Sadiq Khan. In his role as the boss of Transport for London, which runs London's famed tube service. Actually, it gets a bad press, the underground system. It's not great, but it's better than people say it is. However, this is what I want to know. Why have TfL, Sadiq Khan, the bosses who run the tube, decided that they have a key role in the crusade against obesity? What's it got to do with them? So a comedian called Ed Gamble has put up a poster promoting his upcoming stand-up tour, and he had a big hot dog. You can see it there on the left. Go to the right. Transport for London made him take the hot dog away and replace it with a cucumber because the hot dog poster would apparently encourage people to eat hot dogs, and that makes you fat. I mean, what the hell has it got to do with TfL what people eat. Alex.
I don't know, but I want a hot dog now.
Yeah, exactly. You're undermining my nomination.
This is ridiculous, you know. They clamp down on things. There was the wedding cake saga, wasn't there?
Yeah,
where they were advertising some sort of, I don't know, play or performance about a wedding cake. You know, oh my God, you look at delicious food, that's it. You're going to instantly put on 25 kilos. I mean, why don't you just get trains that work and drivers who drive them? That would be a good start. I'd appreciate that.
Rebecca?
What's interesting is that some of the advertising is McDonald's, which just doesn't really tally with this let's not promote unhealthy eating. And there's a lot of fast food establishments around stations, tube stations, particularly in London. I find that very confusing. What is more concerning is that last year, crime on the Underground went up by 50%. And yet somehow they're more concerned about someone wanting a hot dog, you know, while they're on the tube, or might want to go and see some comedy, considering the mess everything else is going on. They might want to have a bit of a laugh. No, let's make it really boring. And actually, I would prefer them to make the tube safer for everyone.
As we speak, you know, this week somebody has been badly stabbed on the Underground system. And apparently to Sadiq Khan, it's far more important that they don't eat fattening food. Only recently, a similar situation unfolded because of a West End play. I think it was called The Wedding or something. But anyway, there it is, Tony and Tina's wedding. So there they are, Tony and Tina. This is the poster, acting as if they're little figurines on the top of a wedding cake. TfL made them get rid of the wedding cake because wedding cakes are fattening. I mean, what is going on here?
I've been totally inspired to eat nothing but cucumber for the... I have to say that this is great publicity for the comedian guy, isn't it? I mean,
brilliant.
And I'm quite certain that the posters, you probably would be more taken by the cucumber poster, just in the sense you think to yourself, what on earth is a bit of cucumber doing on that plate?
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't seem right.
Yeah, and why there's a cucumber on the plate and his apron is covered in ketchup and well, what kind of a diet have you got? I mean, ridiculous.
Or they'd probably think it was blood.
When it comes to Plank of the Week, he's an overachiever. He really is. He's always in the mix. It's
him and Hamza, you know, they're neck and neck.
Actually, he does very well.
Yeah, he does, yeah.
Well, that brings to an end our powerhouse discussions. Some very, very good nominations. I have, of course, made my choice. That's not true, actually. I've got to think of it now. You know, I'm not going to, even though I think mine are the best, as always, I'm not going to boast by choosing my own nominations. I think I'm going to go for, actually, Keir Starmer. Well done, Alex. You win. Keir Starmer, that's for you.
Oh, well done.
Thank you very much to an excellent panel. You've all been absolutely average. Thank you very much, Alex Salmond, Rebecca Twomey, Will Geddes, and the one and only Alex Phillips. Mike will be back next week. Thanks very much for watching. Bye-bye.